now watching Wayback Wednesday, sponsored by Davenport Auto Park, the ride of your life. And also sponsored by Flores Glass, serving the area since 1977 with residential and commercial work.
Good evening, friends, and welcome to another episode of Wayback Wednesday. I'm Randy Adcox. Glad you could be with us tonight. Got a really special show tonight. You know, I've been doing the show for a couple of years now, and it seems like I never cease to be amazed about the things I learn week in, week out. And I had a couple of phone calls this past week that put me onto some topics and subjects and people that, frankly, I either was not aware of or had forgotten entirely about. And so tonight's show is, to use an old saying, kind of a Jukas mixture. We're going to look at some old advertisements. We've had a couple of requests to look at some old pictures from Nashville. And I actually had some for last week. We didn't get to them, so we've kind of brought those back over to this week. So got a handful of pictures from Nashville. I want to give out a special thanks to our local Rocky Mount City Councilman, Mr. W.B. Bullock. I happened to run into W.B. last week actually, in a local restaurant, and he was telling me about a picture he had. And he said, yeah, I've tried to give this picture away 2 or 3 times and nobody seems to want it, and I don't want to throw it away. He said, would you like to have it? And I said, I would absolutely like to have it. And so I met him at his office, and we had a nice little visit, nice chat. And he gave me this picture, and I don't know how well this is going to come across on your TV screen, but it's an absolute treasure to me. I hold it up, and Leaf, you can zoom in on it. This is the 1956 Planters Bank and Trust Company Board of Directors. Again, from 1956. And I'm going to put it right here. I'm going to bring out my phone because I actually, everyone in this picture is identified in the picture, which is amazing in itself. But there's some very prominent people in this photograph. Many of these people you would recognize the name if you didn't know the person themselves. And just to give you an example, I'm going to read off, I'll read the names. Now, I don't know which is which in this picture, and I'm not going to try to identify every one of them. But as I read these names, I'm sure some of you will recognize some of these people. Some of you may even know some of these people. In fact, I know at least one of our viewers knows one of these people because I believe it's his father. Anyway, here are the names that are identified under the picture. Mr. R.R. Braswell, Mr. Thomas J. Pearsall, Mr. Josh L. Horn, W.B. Lee, Hyman L. Battle, Wiley W. Mears, M.R. Robbins, Roy M. Phipps, Archie W. McLean, J.C. Gardner, and yes, that's Jim Gardner's father, Julian Finner, Arthur L. Tyler, Alan C. Mims, had the dealership here locally, car dealership, George S. Edwards, we've talked about Mr. Edwards before, had a store over on Marigold Street. Francis Winslow, W.S. Wilkinson, and I believe that was the gentleman for which Wilkinson Elementary School was named for. Mr. J.B. Brewer of the Brewer Paint Wallpaper Company. Wythe D. Quarles Jr., Robert D. Gorham, and that is Bobby Gorham's father, by the way, of Tarrytown Mall fame, Bobby Gorham. This is his father. He was on the board of directors in 1956, Planters Bank. Henry Gregory Jr., J. Holt Evans, Gilbert T. Stevensons, J. P. Bunn, A. L. Brandon, and last but not least, Mr. M. P. Dawson. So these were all, as I said, directors from Planters National Bank in 1956. This picture is just as it was given to me by Mr. Bullock. It was already framed. It was hanging on his wall, and I graciously, gladly took it back to my office, hung it on my wall, and that's where it was until I took it down today to bring it and share with you tonight. So, you know, these old pictures quite often get thrown away. People don't recognize the people who are in the picture. Doesn't mean anything to them, and they cast them aside or throw them away to get sold at a yard sale. In fact, W.B. told me he found this at a yard sale several years ago, and he said it didn't mean anything to him specifically, but he thought, you know what, it's worth something to somebody. And he said he couldn't remember exactly, maybe paid $5 for it, if even that much, probably less than that. But in any case, when he offered it to me, I was thrilled. And thanks again, WB, if you're watching. I know he and his wife, Mandy, do watch the show sometimes, so I really appreciate this. It means more than you know. And you know, I had another inquiry this week from someone, another one of our viewers, Mr. Harold Winston, called me. And I'm going to mention a name that some of you will recognize and some of you may not. I have to admit I did not recognize the name when Harold mentioned it to me, but I spent a good part of this last several days researching this gentleman, and I was impressed, number one, and number two, I was really, I came to admire the man who I never met, never knew. He died before I was born. But Mr. DeLeon Carter, if you don't remember that name or don't recognize the name, I'm going to share some information with you about Mr. Carter later on the show. So tune in for that. But as I said, this week's show was just kind of a combination of things. I had 3 or 4 people to recommend things to me and ask me about certain topics and certain people. And so as I was researching and looking for different things, I kept uncovering other things. So I just wanted to share it all with you tonight. So tonight's show doesn't have any particular theme. There's no particular course or pathway we're headed down. But I just want to share some things with you, and hopefully you'll learn something as I did this week during my research. When we ran out of time on last week's show, we were talking about if you remember, this is Black History Month, and I said every show from the rest of the month in February, I'm going to try to highlight at least one of our fellow citizens who was, if not from Rocky Mount, certainly made a name for themselves in Rocky Mount. And last week we were just about out of time when we got to Mr. A.H. Bryant, who was an alderman for the city of Rocky Mount, and in 1953. And so I'm not certain, maybe someone who knows the family knows more about this than I could kind of share some light on this, but I believe this gentleman, if not her father, I think he was related to Angela Bryant anyway. But go ahead, Lee, and put, if you would, picture number 1 up on the screen. We started this last week, and we ran out of time, so I just want to kind of readdress this. This is the campaign ad, a man who wants to serve you better, A.H. Bryant for Alderman of 6th Ward. If you know about the history of Rocky Mount's local politics, and if you don't, I'll kind of give you a little insight here. Right now we have 7 Rocky Mount City wards, and each ward is represented by a council member. In the 1950s and up through, I think, sometime late 60s, early 70s, we had aldermen. And I'm not sure, I think there may have only been 6 wards back then. I think the 7th ward was added sometime later. But in any case, prior to us having council members, we had aldermen, and Mr. A.H. Bryant. And there was a nice little write-up in the paper in April of 1953. And I just want to read a little bit of this to you. It says, a native and resident of Rocky Mount since 1911, attended Rocky Mount schools, Johnson C. Smith University, had a BS degree in chemistry and biology, was a teacher in Rocky Mount City Schools for 11 years. He was the president of a civic forum, president of Rocky Mount Hospital Association, PTA of Lincoln School and Booker T. Washington High School. He was a committeeman with the Troop 161. I'm guessing that's Boy Scouts. It doesn't say so, but I'm guessing that was Boy Scouts. Chairman of the Trustee Board of Mount Zion Baptist Church. He was a member of the Trustee Board of North Carolina College in Durham. Man of the Year in Rocky Mount in 1949. Member of the Executive Committee of Business League. He was a member of the Advisory Committee of the YMCA and the Community Council. And here's a little rundown of his record here. It says he was instrumental in helping to organize the Little League and a charter member. Established the Civic Forum Citizenship Award in all the schools and the Man of the Year Award. Took an active part in helping to secure information to show the need of our local housing project. He was active in arousing interest in hospital need and organizing hospital association. He organized the Cafe Association and the Negro Business League locally. He organized the PTA membership card drive at Lincoln School, which was the first of the city so organized. He initiated and organized the drive to dress up the high school band. He organized the first colored school safety patrol in the city at Lincoln School. He was active on committee that raised funds for lights for the Walter Leonard Playground. He was awarded a Johnson C. Smith Alumni Citation for 1952 for unselfish community service. I never knew this gentleman, and obviously he was very active in the community, did a lot. And you know, I said he was a member of alderman, and now reading this, I'm not absolutely certain he won that race. He was running for alderman, and this was a campaign. Go ahead, Lee, and put that next picture up. This is just the same ad I was just reading from. But you've noticed at the bottom, a vote for A.H. Bryant, May 4th, paid for by friends. So honestly, I don't know if he won or not. I don't know if he ever served as an alderman. Now that I'm looking at this a little more detail. But certainly he was influential in Rocky Mount and done a lot for not only the black community, but for Rocky Mount as a whole. And so he deserves our gratitude and respect for work he did in and around Rocky Mount over the years. Okay, so let's move along then. As I said, while I was doing some research for the night show, I ran across a bunch of pictures and advertisements particularly. And frankly, some of these just kind of caught my eye. I just wanted to share them with you. So there's no particular theme to some of this stuff. It's just things I stumbled across that I thought were interesting. I thought I would just bring them on the show and share them with you tonight. Picture number 3, if you will, Lee, is from 1925. And this was a music store here in Rocky Mount that I had never heard of either. It was C.W. Gregory's Music House, located at 124 North Washington Street. And I'm going to read this little ad here because a couple things about this that jumped out at me. First of all, it says, we very cordially invite the music-loving public to call and look over our matchless line of high-grade pianos and musical instruments with prices suitable for every purse. All instruments strictly warranted, embracing old standard makes by the largest manufacturers, which include, and these are the manufacturers of instruments that they carried in 1925, Chickering and Son, Haynes Brothers, Gold Branson, Weaver, Hobart M. Cable, and M. Schultz. And I have to say, I don't recall ever hearing either one of these brand names in a musical instrument. Maybe they're still in existence, some of these, I'm not sure, but none of these names rang a bell with me. It says, sold at the right price and on very easy terms. We have made arrangements with some of our manufacturers to give a considerable discount on all pianos sold to schools and churches. We invite correspondence, and our representative will be pleased to call in person and give any information desired concerning these wonderful instruments and how easy it will be for you to own and brighten the home and add a little high ideals of home life. So anyway, this was the C.W. Gregory's Music House, located at 124 North Washington Street. And that's in the same general area as the old Rocky Mount Police Station, if you remember who that was, kind of a little bit north and across the street from the old Auto Equip location down there on the north end of Washington Street. By the time I came along, 25 or so years later, this place was long gone, and I don't recall there ever being a music store on Washington Street, but I thought it was interesting that there was indeed one down there and had brand names that I'd never heard of. So a little different there. Okay, we had a couple folks ask about some Nashville pictures, and so I stumbled across 2 or 3 from last week, for last week's show, and I thought I would just kind of share those tonight. And I do apologize. A couple of these are kind of dark. It didn't come out really well. They were dark in the paper. I tried to lighten them up. But from 1950, there was a movie that came out. Some of you may remember it. It was called Waves of Green. Not Waves of Grain, but Waves of Green. And so they had a premiere for the movie in Nashville, of all places. And there were some pretty prominent people that made the appearance for this premiere of this movie in Nashville in 1950. May the 4th, 1950, these pictures appeared. So Lee, if you would, let's go into this next picture. And again, I apologize, these are not very good quality. It's hard to tell what they are, but I'm going to read the caption to you, just kind of explain a little bit here. It says, Red Letter Day for Nash County. The pictures above, and there's 2 of them, by the way. There's one above and then one below. But it says the pictures above show something of the holiday spirit that prevailed in Nashville Monday as thousands jammed the town for the national premiere of Waves of Green. In the top photo, from left to right, are Congressman Harold D. Cooley, Secretary of Agriculture Charles F. Brannan, and Frank R. Pierce, President of Dearborn Motor Corporation. The picture was made as they watched the parade from the reviewing stand, In the bottom photo, a tractor driven by Lion member E.A. White pulls the welcome float entered in the parade by the Nashville Lions Club. The exhibit of, this is a word I'd never heard before, feminine polkarade, it looks like what it is, was the float includes Lois Collins, Kay Johnson, B.B. Tappan, and Jane Bass. Some of the estimated 15,000 persons who witnessed the activities may be seen in the background and along the roofs of the store buildings. In the words of Congressman Cooley, it was a red-letter day in Nash County. 15,000 people showed up in little old Podunk, Nashville for the premiere of this movie, Waves of Grain, in May of 1950. Now the next picture, Lee, if you would, is a much better quality picture here. And this is, believe it or not, Congressman Gerald Ford on the left there, later to be President of the United States, Harold D. Cooley there in the center, and Walter T. Murphy discussing the premiere of the motion picture. Now, this ad appeared in the same general area as the other picture I just showed you, but it did not say anywhere in that Gerald Ford made it to Nashville. So I don't want to imply that Gerald Ford made it, though he may have. I don't know that he did not, but the write-up did not imply that Gerald Ford came. But this was obviously a major motion picture. Harold Cooley, of course, from Nashville, from Nashville, was certainly in this picture here. So he obviously knew Gerald Ford. And but this was a big deal in 1950, May of 1950, when this movie was released and it premiered in Nashville, North Carolina. Something I didn't know about. Okay, Lee, picture number 6, if you would. This is just an advertisement that appeared in February of 1961, and we've talked in the past about Rayleigh Chevrolet Buick in Nashville. This was had long been closed up by my earliest recollection of going to Nashville. I can't say I ever remember going or seeing Rayleigh Chevrolet. But in any case, this ad came out in February of 1961, and what it's showing there is a 1961 Chevrolet with what it refers to as Jet Smooth Ride. And that was obviously a marketing ploy there. It says the 61 Chevrolet loves to go because it gives it purrs along pavements like happy tabby. Anyway, this was just to me a neat ad. That 61 Chevrolet there was a fine ride in itself. I actually knew a couple of family members who had one of those, and got a chance to ride in one more than once, in fact. So 1961 Chevrolet there from Rayleigh Chevrolet Buick in Nashville. Okay. I mentioned there's all kind of pictures and advertisements throughout the night show. I just, like I said, I kept stumbling across these pictures and these advertisements that just kind of made me chuckle and smile on occasion. Picture number 7, if you would, Lee. This is from 1946. We've talked about Cadell Motors before. I knew Dick Cadell. I actually worked with him for a while back in the 1970s. But in 1946, Cadell Motor Company was on the corner of Howard Street and Western Avenue, and this ad appeared February of 1946, advertising the new Skyway-style Studebaker Champion. You know, Studebaker and Edsel are two car names you don't hear much about anymore. Many people say they were ahead of their times, engineering and styling. They were both good cars. I don't think anybody would dispute that. I mean, they were well made, but they just were a little ahead of their time, and unfortunately they just over the years kind of went by the wayside and never took off and had the same popularity, I guess you'd say, as Fords and Chevrolets and other brand names did. But in 1946, the Studebaker Champion was a fine ride, and I'm not sure who this pretty lady was here, but I would guess either Miss Rocky Mount or maybe a local high school student. She's not identified in the picture. But anyway, this was from 1946, Cadell Motor Company here. Okay, I tell you what, this is a good time. Let's bring it back to me, Lee. We'll go ahead and take our first commercial break. And when we come back, we've got some more ads to show you. We're going to get to Mr. DeLeon Carter a little bit later in the show. I've got quite a bit I want to share with you about him and what he did in and around Rocky Mount. He left a wonderful legacy. So when we come back, we'll get some other things first, and we'll get to Mr. Carter. So don't go anywhere, folks. We'll be right back with more Wayback Wednesday.
I'm Daniel Moss, owner of Cornerstone Funeral Home, and I'd like to invite you and your family to give our family an opportunity to serve you in your time of need. And we offer a full line of funeral services, everything from visitations to graveside services to cremations on site with a live crematory, as well as a banquet hall to meet the catering needs of our families that we serve. We offer catering service, we offer refreshments prior to visitations and services of our family, and we want to invite you to come and experience the difference here at Cornerstone Funeral Home.
Hello, my name is Gus Tullis of Gus Tullis Insurance, and I've been helping people with their insurance needs for well over 20 years. If you're turning 65 or you're currently on Medicare, I can help you make the best decision for the Medicare plan that will suit your needs. Don't wait. Call me today. I'll answer any question you have. 252-937-6913. Looking forward to hearing from you.
When faced with special care needs for elderly or disabled loved ones, families want compassionate, comforting care. That's Tender Touch Home Care Services' goal, providing the level of care we would expect for our own. With over 10 years of home care excellence, Tender Touch provides an array of services that keeps your loved one at home. From personal care, light housekeeping, errands, and meal preparation, to our private duty care program, which combines all of our home care offerings in one package.
Tender Touch Home Care Services, where your needs are our concern.
I'm Daniel Moss, owner of Cornerstone Funeral Home, and I'd like to invite you and your family to give our family an opportunity to serve you in your time of need. And we offer a full line of funeral services, everything from visitations to graveside services to cremations on site with a live crematory, as well as a banquet hall to meet the catering needs of our families that we serve. We offer catering service, we offer refreshments prior to visitations and services of our family, and we want to invite you to come and experience the difference here at Cornerstone Funeral Home.
Hello, my name is Gus Tullis of Gus Tullis Insurance, and I've been helping people with their insurance needs for well over 20 years. If you're turning 65 or you're currently on Medicare, I can help you make the best decision for the Medicare plan that will suit your needs. Don't wait. Call me today. I'll answer any question you have. 252-937-6913. Looking forward to hearing from you.
When faced with special care needs for elderly or disabled loved ones, families want compassionate, comforting care. That's Tender Touch Home Care Services' goal, providing the level of care we would expect for our own. With over 10 years of home care excellence, Tender Touch provides an array of services that keeps your loved one at home. From personal care, light housekeeping, errands, and meal preparation, to our private duty care program, which combines all of our home care offerings in one package.
Tender Touch Home Care Services, where your needs are our concern.
We're back. Folks, we're just tuning in. You're watching Wayback Wednesday. I'm Randy Adcox. Tonight's show was just a kind of a combination of different things. I didn't really have a particular theme for tonight's show. It's really, as I said earlier, kind of a jukous mixture of just ads and pictures and things that I found. Quite often when I'm researching for a topic for the show, I get into this newspapers.com website, and like a kid in a candy store, I mean, you click on one thing and that you spot something else, and you click on that. And I mean, it's easy to get lost and spend hours in this stuff. But I love it. You know, just something that just appeals to me to spend time reading over these old ads. I find myself wishing many a time I could go back in time and spend time in these years gone by. Obviously, that's not a possibility, but it's fun to think about anyway. So, before the break, we were looking at some different ads and so forth. And this next picture is one that came from 1949. It appeared in the Rocky Mountain Telegram in 1949. And we've talked about different restaurants around town over the years, and certainly the supper clubs and restaurants and so forth. There's one called the Club Carlisle. Many of you may remember this. It was later, I think, the Rio, and then later the Elks Lodge took that building over. But picture number 8, if you would, Lee, go ahead and put that up for us. This is an ad that appeared, as I said, in September 1949, and it was a Club Carlisle Oyster Bar ad. It says, now open for the season. Sunday special, all you can eat, oysters any style for $2.50 a person. Steamed, fried, stewed, or you could get steak, chicken, lobster, frog legs, chicken a la king, seafood platter, oyster cocktail, shrimp cocktail, crab meat, lobster meat, grapefruit, or any other juice. All you can eat for $2.50 per person. And it says Club Carlisle open from 5 p.m. until, and I guess they close when everybody's finished eating. But in any case, the $2.50 price just kind of made me chuckle. Not too long ago, I had an opportunity to go out to eat. My wife and I went over to Wilson to I think it's called Crab du Jour. It's a crab house over there. That's in the it's in another restaurant that closed up, and this place went into it. Anyway, really good seafood if you like seafood. We got crab, shrimp, oysters, and so forth. But I think the bill was about $80 for two of us, and so to be able to eat all you could eat, $2.50 per person. Obviously a long time ago, 1949 in fact. All righty, let's go ahead and lead to the next picture if you would. In the 1940s, obviously World War II was going, and as we all know, there was a lot of rationing going on. It was hard to get certain items, and this ad appeared in the Rocky Mountain Telegram, and there was not a date, but in any case it refers to due to war conditions, with clock manufacturers all busy doing war work, it is impossible to get repair parts for clocks. Therefore, we will pay 10 cents to 35 cents for any old alarm clock containing parts that can be used to replace broken parts of clocks now in our repair department. So this was James N. Fox jeweler, and I believe Randy Harrell sent me this, now that I think about it. So thank you, Randy, for that. But, it just kind of brings back to mind the fact that we often forget that during wartime, particularly in World War II, resources were scarce. Metal was scarce, rubber was scarce, and anything that could go into making a weapon or ammunition or anything for the war effort, that was a priority. The war effort was a priority for materials, and so advertisers such as Mr. Fox here came up with this unique idea to buy used clocks, in this case, from his customers, and then take them apart and use what usable parts he could to repair other clocks for other people. So pretty ingenious in one sense. I mean, if you couldn't get new parts, most folks just wanted a clock fixed. They didn't care if the part to fix it was new or out of a used clock. But it was a pretty ingenious way to get your hands on some much needed materials to do watch repair if the suppliers weren't able to send you anything. So, all right, so let's go ahead then, Lee, if we could. Let's go to number 10. We've talked about Efforts department store in the past. This ad appeared in October of 1953. They were located at 216 Southwest Main Street. That's on the Nash County side of the tracks, not too far down from the train station and so forth down there. But these prices really kind of jumped out at me. Ladies' shoes, $2.95, $3.95, $4.50. Girls' school shoes, $1.48. Boys' school shoes, $1.98. Mrs. dress shoes, $2.95 and $3.95. Boys' shoes, $2.65. Work shoes, $1.65. Heavy work shoes, $2.98, and work boots, $4.98. The most expensive shoe on the whole daggone list is $4.98, and that's for a heavy-duty work boot. So, you know, lots transpired since 1953, obviously. We're enduring some pretty hefty inflation right now from what the headlines are telling us, and it's just hard to fathom being able to go out and buy any pair of shoes for less than $30, $40, and to buy a heavy-duty pair of work boots for $5 is kind of unique. But anyway, as I said, lots changed in the last 60 years or so. And in 1953, at Efforts on Main Street, you could go get yourself a pair of shoes for less than $5, about anywhere. I mean, any style, any shoe you wanted for less than $5. Pretty interesting. Okay, this next picture kind of got out of order, and I apologize for that. It should have been in with the pictures from Nashville. But this was also a Rayleigh Chevrolet Buick ad that appeared in 1959. But, you know, this is something that really kind of startled me, the fact that you could go into a car dealership and buy a stove. And, you know, that kind of marketing was not too terribly uncommon. We've talked about this before. You know, it was quite often where a business would open up, and in addition to their primary service offering or product offering, they would sell something else or provide another service. And this was certainly true in Rayleigh Buick Chevrolet in 1959 was selling stoves. And that's the first I'd ever heard of that. I didn't realize you could buy a stove in a car dealership, but apparently in 1959 you could. You could get a Frigidaire. With the new pulled and clean oven. By the way, this was an electric range, which in itself was kind of unique because prior to electric stoves, of course, they were either gas or wood-burning stoves to go back far enough. But this was an electric range, $199.50, and they would finance it for you, small payments. Oh, we got a call. Let's get this call. Hello, caller, you're on the air.
In fact, Frigidaire was a product of General Motors.
Okay, that makes sense.
And think back, Philco was a product of Ford.
Philco Ford, you're exactly right.
Right, so maybe it wasn't all that unusual to be able to go in and buy a Frigidaire product at a General Motors dealership.
Maybe not. That was the first I'd ever seen this, but you're probably right. It makes sense now that you word it that way. Sure does.
Yep.
All right. Thanks for sharing.
Take care.
You too now. Bye-bye. Okay. Yeah, you know, I'd forgotten about the Philco Ford brand name, but that certainly, as I said, that was out there too. And so I would imagine there was probably other dealerships that done similar promotional things and had some products that were made by Frigidaire in their dealership too. So anyway, 1959 was that ad in the Rocky Mount Telegram. Okay, let's go ahead and lead then to the next, which should be picture number 12, I believe. And this is an ad that appeared in November of 1956, Standard Electric. And obviously it was November, so we're Christmas season now already. And this says, free toys at Standard Electric, your choice of toys free when you buy a Motorola television. Up to $50 worth of toys free. Now and this is the neat thing, a TV that really tunes itself. So this was one of the first TVs that actually, when the installer came out to set the TV up in your home, he went through the available channels you could pick up with the antenna and tuned each station to that TV. So instead of having to get up there and turn a little dial on the knob, we all remember that. I say we all, some of you do and some may not, but used to you have to change channel and there's a little knob behind the main knob. You turn that little knob left to right, whatever, to tune in that station. And so when this TV came out, it was pre-tuned by the guy who came out and set it up for you. And another neat thing about this TV was that it was remote controllable. Down the bottom right-hand corner, it says new Motorola Trans-Tuner wireless remote control. So not only was each channel tuned and preset and ready to go, so that when you went from channel 5 to 7 to 9 to 11, it was automatically tuned. You could do that from the comfort of your Archie Bunker chair by pressing the buttons on a remote. And so, you know, this is something that I was a little bit surprised at, frankly. I didn't realize that in 1956 they had remote control television. I know when I came along in in the late 50s, early 60s, the only remote my father had was me. He would tell me to get up and go change the knob on top of the TV or move the antenna pole or whatever. But you could buy a TV that was pre-tuned and had remote control in 1956. So there you go. All right, let's go ahead, Lee, to number 12 if we could then. I'm sorry, that was 12, wasn't it? Let's go to number 13 then. Someone had mentioned to Sandra, and Sandra called me and said, see what you can dig up on Sundrop. Sundrop's been around many, many years. Very popular soft drink. We've had a bottler or distributor here in Rocky Mount, golly, as long as I can remember anyway. I'm not sure when it first came here in Rocky Mount. But this ad appeared in 1969, November 69, and they were giving away you could win anyway, a free Honda 90. Second and third prizes were bicycles. So the way you enter this was saving Sundrop and Double Cola bottle caps. And as it says here, here's all you do. Save and find all Sundrop and Double Cola caps you can between now and December 17th. Then bring them to the Double Cola and Sundrop plant, Raleigh Road Extension, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, December 15th, 16th, or 17th. Deadline is December 17th at 7 p.m. Anyone can play. Winners will be notified December 17th at 7:30 p.m. So first prize, as I said, was a Honda motorcycle, Honda 90. Second prize was a bicycle. Third prize was a drawing for a second bicycle. So as I said, Sundrop's been around a long time. I did find a little history sheet about the Sundrop beverage itself. So this is a fairly long article. I don't want to read the whole thing. First of all, it tells you a little bit about Sundrop. It says, Sundrop is a citrus-flavored soft drink produced by Dr. Pepper Snapple Group. It has a yellowish-green color imparted by tartrazine. Among soft drinks, it is known as a high caffeine content, 63 milligrams per 12-ounce can, which is 9 milligrams higher than a 12-ounce can of Mountain Dew, for example. It says, nevertheless, it's not as much as Vault, another soft drink brand that has 70 milligrams per 12-ounce can. Anyway, it says, Sundrop was developed in Missouri by Charles Lazier, a salesman in beverage concentrates. While riding around town in the family car, Lazier quickly scribbled a recipe for a new soft drink on a small piece of paper, which he handed to his son, Charles Jr. The younger Lazier worked as a lab tech at his father's plant and soon began work on the formula. 2 years later, Sundrop debuted at the American Bottlers of Carbonated Beverages in Washington, D.C. The Sundrop formula was patented on April the 15th, 1930. So Sundrop has been around a long time. The drink was marketed in several southern states under names such as Sundrop Golden Cola, Golden Girl Cola. The brand was acquired and standardized by Crush International in 1970. Crush International was purchased by Procter & Gamble in 1980, which sold its soft drinks holdings to Cadbury Schweppes in 1989. Cadbury Schweppes PLC demerged in 2008 with its beverages unit becoming Keurig Dr. Pepper, which currently produces Sundrop. So anyway, Sundrop has had a long and storied history, obviously, and there have been several different advertisements for it. And Lee, if you would go to the next picture, and this is the building, of course, over on Raleigh Road Extension where the Sundrop bottling plant is today. But I think the next picture, Lee, if you would, is the one. There you go. This was a unique ad that I do not recall. I'm not sure when this ad came out, but I stumbled across this today when I was looking, just trying to find some information about Sundrop. But you see there, Golden Girl Cola, and then in small letters it says Sundrop, refreshing as a cup of coffee. Now, Lee, we got one more in this line of, there you go. If you notice here, this was a metal sign that would appear in a convenience store, for example, or a grocery store, country store. And the top part was the advertisement, the bottom part was like a chalkboard surface. So they could write specials or advertise products, whatever on there. But in any case, this ad goes back, I think, to the 1940s, this metal sign here anyway. And the Sundrop logo actually itself has changed, and colors have been flip-flopped. It used to be orange with yellow writing, and it was yellow with orange writing. This appears to be kind of a reddish background with white writing. But like I said, the Sundrop logo itself has had several renditions over the years, and of course the soft drink itself, marketing has changed over the years too, and it's been around for several years. So, okay, Lee, go ahead to the next one if you would. And I think the next one may be, I think we might have to hang on just a minute here. Let's see here. Okay, Lee, you can go ahead now to the next one if you would. Okay, all right, that was the last one in that group. Okay, so I mentioned earlier Mr. DeLeon Carter. I don't recall ever hearing the name DeLeon Carter, and frankly, I don't know, I didn't know anything about the man until I got to doing some research. This article appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram on February 22nd, 1954, and it talks about the officers and directors for the Planters Cotton Mill and Fertilizer Company. And in 1954, DeLeon Carter was a director, as was Mr. M.P. Dawson, and there were others, by the way, too. I just kind of clipped this one section out here. But these were two members of the board of directors for the Planters Cotton Oil and Fertilizer Company. And so that got me interested. As I said, Harold Winston called there's a foundation. It's called the DeLeon Carter Foundation. It was started by Mr. DeLeon Carter's daughter. Her name was Myrtle. After her parents died, and over the years, Mr. Carter had acquired quite a lot of land and holdings. He was obviously a businessman. He'd had a lot of, quite a lot of farmland, a lot of farms, in fact. And so after her parents died, their daughter Myrtle got together with a bunch of local business people and set up this foundation. And the whole intent was to further community activities and community interest in and around Nash County, Rocky Mount area. And so, and by the way, many of you may remember, if you take Sunset Avenue out to what's commonly called Westridge Crossroads, there's a Hardee's there now, and a Sheetz, and I think there's a gas station across on the side. Anyway, you turn left there, go down to the railroad tracks on there. There's an old store on the left-hand side. Well, that was Mr. DeLeon Carter's store. And the railroad track came right by there, and the story goes that he was able, because a train would come by there and stop periodically, he was able to get things off the train there that other stores might not have gotten as soon as he did. Christmas candy, for example, at Christmas time. I understand that when the train would come through bringing Christmas candies and different things, they would stop at his store, and he was able to, I guess, purchase off the train. But in any case, in later years, the store was sold, and there was a Christmas store there, a Santa Claus type store. But anyway, that's where Mr. Carter and his wife lived. And so after he died, as I said, after his wife died, his daughter set up this foundation, and it was called the DeLeon Carter Foundation. And I'm going to read a little bit about this because it's really interesting here, all that's transpired. This is a long article, so I'm not going to try to read the whole thing. But it says, Myrtle Henry Carter initiated the creation of the DeLeon Carter Foundation on April 17, 1987, with a dinner for 2 original trustees and 6 founding directors at her home. True to her hospitality as charming and vivacious Southern hostess, her 6,000 square foot signature residence is across South Old Carriage Road from Nash Central High School. That's that real pretty great big brick house. Once you cross the railroad tracks, start going up a little bit on the right-hand side. That's where Myrtle lived. And so she had these folks come to her house, and they sat down and they kind of sketched out this plan for a foundation. It said, born Myrtle Edwards Carter, Myrtle Henry returned to Nash County, North Carolina, after being widowed in 1960 to live with her mother until Maddie Edwards Carter died in February 1967. Her father, DeLeon Carter, had died in 1956. After moving to the new residence in the mid-70s and selling the Westry Siding home place in 1991, Myrtle Henry continued to manage and develop business holdings until her death in 1995. You know, it says she was a gracious hostess, as was her mother. Her home was regularly open to a circle of friends that included U.S. Representative Harold Cooley, Dr. J. Allen Whitaker, Dr. Ted Strickland, and his wife Nancy, Ted's mother. Ted Strickland, by the way, was my dentist many years ago. He's since passed away. But in any case, these, very influential people, doctors and such, lawyers, attorneys, and so forth. But they got this foundation off the ground and got it started. And from what I understand, there was a stipulation that as the Carter family property was sold off, the proceeds of the sale of the property would go into this foundation. And then it could be used for various activities. There's a fairly new park. It's only been built in the last 3 years or so out in the Cooper's community by Cooper School out there. And part of that park was put together with a grant from the Leon Carter Foundation. I understand over the years, since this foundation has been initiated, that over $1 million have been paid out in grants in and around Nash County, Rocky Mount. It's just been a wonderful. Nash Community College, in fact, has been the recipient of grants from the Leon Carter Foundation. So, it was something neat to me to find out about this gentleman that I had never heard of, didn't know anything about, and find that not only was he so instrumental in Rocky Mount, he was obviously active in the Planters Cotton Mill. He was active in the tobacco industry. I think he was involved with several other organizations. He was on the board of directors of several different committees and so forth, and just a very active individual in the community, very civic-minded, and it's just, this organization, this foundation, I should say, was set up years after he passed away, but I'm sure he'd be very impressed, very proud, in fact, that his daughter took what he was able to accomplish and manifested into something that has done so much good over the years. Lee, if we could, let's go to the next picture. I think this next picture is just, there you go, that's a little better picture. And this was in the paper, as I said, in the Rocky Mount Telegram in 1954, this article appeared. And ironically, when Harold Winstead called me, he said, we've been looking, trying to find a picture of DeLeon Carter. We've only found one, and he's standing outside with a hat on. The sun is shading part of his face. You can't really recognize him. He said, we thought maybe you might could find a picture. So I began hunting for a picture of DeLeon Carter, and I scoured the web. I called the Cooley Library in Nashville, had the nice lady over there looked, and she called me back and she said, I've looked, I can't find one either. So far, this picture right here is the only picture that we've been able to find of DeLeon Carter. I'm sure there are others out there, and I will continue to keep looking. But in any case, this was the man in 1954. As I said, he died 2 years after this was taken. He died in 1956. And my pictures here regarding these clippings from the newspaper are a little bit out of chronological sequence, and I apologize for that. The next picture, Lee, if you would, let's go to the very next one. And this is an article that appeared in 1932. And this was when he and his wife celebrated their 25th wedding anniversary. And I just want to read some of these. It said, Mr. and Mrs. DeLeon Carter celebrated their silver anniversary on last Thursday evening when they entertained at a dinner party at their attractive home near Nashville. After dinner, by means of tallies carrying out the bridal note, the guests found their places at tables on the porch and in the living room where rook and contract bridge were played. High score in rook was received by Ms. J.N. Seals and high score in bridge by Ms. B.J. Downey. Each was presented with a box of Dorothy Gray bath powder. The hostess received many lovely gifts of silver. Those present were Ms. J.H.A. Edwards, Ms. Delia Edwards of Craddock, Virginia, Mr. and Mrs. J.N. Seals, Mr. and Mrs. H.D. Cooley, that's Harold Cooley and his wife, Mrs. T.R. Harper, Mr. and Mrs. B.J. Downey, Mr. and Mrs. John Strickland, Mr. and Mrs. J.F. Edwards, Mrs. J.T. Strickland, Ms. Leda Carter, Ms. George T. Strickland, Elizabeth Strickland, and Ross Vaughn. So their 25th anniversary, wedding anniversary, was a big deal, obviously. And, you know, these, I saw several references, particularly Miss Carter, DeLeon's wife, was very active in social circles, probably on a different scale than her husband. He was more into the business community, but she was a typical Southern lady, if you will, and very active in social events going around Nash County and Rocky Mount and Nashville. Okay, Lee, in 1933, Mr. Carter was very ill. And this appeared in the paper, April 1933. It says, word has been received here that Mr. DeLeon Carter of the western side of the county is very ill at his home. He was stricken with severe pain Monday, and a little improvement in his condition is seen, so his physician says. I don't know, he obviously survived this. This was in 1933, and he didn't die until 1956. So whatever malady he was dealing with in 1933, he was able to overcome and live another 23 years or so. Sadly, in October of 1956, though, DeLeon Carter passed away. Lee, if you would, let's go to that next. This is an obituary, and I'll just read some of this. It's DeLeon Carter, president of Planters Warehouse here, died Tuesday afternoon at his home near Rocky Mount. Carter, 77, born in Wilson County, was the son of the late Dallas Van Carter and Sally Bailey Carter. He was a member of the board of directors of the Planters Cotton, Oil, and Fertilizer Company, and a farmer in the Nash County area. Funeral rites will be held Thursday morning, 11 o'clock at the Methodist Church in Nashville, and interment later in the family plot in Elm City. This gentleman was born by all estimates probably, fairly meager means in Elm City. Certainly, not a lot of opportunities, if you will, in little old Elm City in the 1800s. God, he was born in 1876, I think it was. So there wasn't a lot of opportunities in Elm City for a young man to bring himself up, if you will, and to achieve what this man achieved in his lifetime. At 77 years old when he passed away, but to be such an icon in the community and in the county. He just achieved an awful lot in his life, and it just, makes you stop and think about these people who complaining all the time about not being able to get ahead. And here this gentleman started out with probably far less than most of us started out with, and was able to achieve a great deal more than most of us ever achieved in his lifetime. So anyway, I tip my hat to the man. Okay, one more, Lee, if you would, in this. Here we go. This was says this was from 1930. Also, I said my images got out of sequence here. I apologize. Friends here and elsewhere throughout the state are receiving attractively engraved announcements which read as followed: Mr. and Ms. DeLeon Carter announced the marriage of their daughter Myrtle to John Joseph Henry on Tuesday the 5th. How about man got three first names? John Joseph Henry, the 5th of August 1930 in Richmond, Virginia. So they got married. She was from here, obviously. They got married in Richmond, Virginia. They ended up moving to Kansas City, Missouri, and that's where they lived until he died, and then she moved back here to be with her mother after her father had passed away. And this next picture is a picture, legal, if you would. This is Mrs. Henry, the original Myrtle Carter. And I'm assuming this is on the property there where her home was, there on Old Carriage Road. But anyway, neat that she did what she did, had the forethought to take what her father had achieved and what her family, her mother and father together had achieved and accomplished, and put it to such good use. That foundation, as I said, is given out over $1 million since it was started, and it's still very active. The board of directors meets periodically, and they consider requests for grants for a variety of improvements and additions and things to enhance the community, enhance the county. And so the good idea that she had so many years ago is still going on strong today. And again, it makes you feel good to hear stories like this about people who came from such meager beginnings and accomplished so much during their life, and even in their death, still contributing to their community. Job well done, Mr. Carter. Okay. A couple of weeks ago, we talked about Rosenblum's and Jake Rosenblum and the store and so forth. I stumbled across this ad. We didn't get a chance to get to it last week. I never knew this about Jake Rosenblum, but Jake Rosenblum had a brother Robert Rosenblum, who was actually killed in World War II. And this was an obituary that appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram, October 23rd of 1943. And it talks about, I'll just read a little bit of this here. It says, R.L. Rosenblum reported killed. Local lieutenant stationed in the Pacific, Mr. and Mrs. J.A. Rosenblum, were notified today by the War Department that their son, First Lieutenant Robert Luke Rosenblum, 23, was killed in action October 18th in the Southwest Pacific. A telegram from the Adjutant General to Lieutenant Rosenblum's wife, Ms. Gloria Rosenblum, stated that a letter would follow. Lieutenant Rosenblum was born in Rocky Mount, April 10th, 1920. He attended city schools, graduated from the Edwards Military Institute in Salemburg, and attended the University of North Carolina and New York University. He entered service in January of 1942 and has been in the Pacific War Theater since December of 42. So that was something I never knew about Jake Rosenblum's family, that he had a brother that got killed in World War II in the Pacific. So sad note there, but there were so many local fellows who went into war, not only in World War II, but Korea and of course Vietnam too. So anyway, Lee, I tell you, I just realized we're about out of time. Real quickly, Lee, if we could, had someone ask about Gup Smoke Shop last week's show. I found this ad. Don't lose your dog. Let Gup make you a name and address plate for his collar. Gup Smoke Shop, 109 South Washington Street. And then one more, Lee, the Ace Lather Spreader. It's a pleasure to use with push-button instant shave creams. Massages as it spreads, softens beard at skin surface, saves more than half the lather, gets away from the messy finger application. It's gold anodized for beauty, sanitation, and durability. On sale now at all drugstores and Gup's Smoke Shop. And last but not least, Labor Day notice. This appeared September 1955. This is a list of jewelry stores in Rocky Mount, and you see the second one there from the top is Selma E. Bullock Jewelry Store. This is the one that Eric called about last week and asked me to do some checking into. This is all I found so far, Eric. I'll keep looking, but this was a neat list of jewelry stores in Rocky Mount. I've never seen a list with this many jewelers all in one ad at the same time. Labor Day sale, September 1955. Folks, that's going to do it for us tonight. We've run slam out of time. I want to thank you all for tuning in. Thank the callers who called in and shared information with us. I always appreciate that. Makes my job easier when you guys call in and help me out with some of the history here. Lee, you can bring it back to me as we wrap up here. And folks, we're going to head on out of here tonight. Thank you so much again for watching and being with us. Have yourselves a great week. Take care of yourselves and be kind to one another. We'll see you next week with more Wayback Wednesday. Good night.